Hey everyone, rudyxx here to talk about another RPGalooza game, Nier Replicant, version 1.22 or whatever. And for the sake of my sanity, I'm just going to refer to the game as Nier or Nier Replicant for the rest of this review, despite it being a slightly different version of the original game. Also, for those of you that don't know, RPGalooza is a project I started involving playing through a huge list of RPG titles, ranging from Western style to Japanese. And while I'm not a huge RPG connoisseur, I do like to dabble in them every now and then. So hopefully I can provide you all with a more modern day gamer look of my experience with them. Also, this review will most definitely possibly contain some spoilers, so if you've never played the game, then I suggest you do so and formulate your own feelings on the journey, as the experience with this game seems to vary greatly between people. So with that out of the way, on to my review of Nier Replicant. Actually, let me just preface my actual review with one more thing. So before I played Nier Replicant, I debated as to whether I should play it before or after Automata. I knew absolutely nothing about the entire Drakengard Nier series going into either game, and I ended up hearing arguments for both cases before I eventually just decided to play Automata first. It was really weird because there were definitely things about my Nier Replicant playthrough that were ruined by Automata, but there were also a fair number of things that were enhanced by it. There was also the fact that I waited long enough that when they announced the Replicant remake, I didn't have to play the original game to get whatever I could out of the game, because what I've seen of the original game after having played both Replicant and Automata, I probably wouldn't have liked it all that much. So in any case, like most people, I played Automata first before any of the other games in the series. I then went on to play Drakengard 1 and 3 after that before diving into Replicant. It was cool that I was able to see all the references, however subtle many of them were to the Drakengard games there were in Replicant, as well as the new stuff they added for the remake dealing with Automata. And overall, I was pretty glad that I played Replicant last, but I do wonder what it would have been like had I played it first instead. Anyways, on to the actual talk of the game itself. For the most part, I enjoyed my playthrough. The combat was pretty straightforward and was balanced well enough that I never ran into any issues with things like having to grind or something else in order to get past anything. For the most part, it just played like a standard action game with some RPG elements thrown in that honestly never felt like they added anything to what was going on. You just hit stuff and roll around so you don't get hit, and you basically win every fight. Going into this game, I wasn't really sure what to expect with any of it, and for some reason I was surprised every single time they did something that was similar to the way things were handled in both Drakengard and Automata. Stuff like having to collect every weapon to unlock endings always played out in the back of my mind, but when I found out I had to actually do that, I was still surprised about it for some reason. And even things like the wide variety of gameplay types was always a surprise to me, despite the fact that I should have expected it after the first time they did it, since that's essentially the same thing that went on in Automata. Overall, the experience was just really one surprise after another. I'd always heard people say that the game was super sad, but for the most part, I didn't connect with a lot of the characters, so I unfortunately didn't really feel much for them. Like, I can definitely see how the game is very emotional for a lot of people, and I'm really glad it touched on certain topics like personal expression and acceptance of people who might be a little different than you, but it was never really issues I've dealt with personally, since I've always just been very accepting of other people's lifestyles and cultures. It's definitely a game that I think does a great job at handling a lot of different subjects like this, and I hope a lot of people learned a thing or two from it, even if it didn't affect them on the same emotional level that people on the suffering end of these situations dealt with. Other than that, another beautifully handled part of this game is the music. Overall, the quality of the music was insanely good, even if some of the tracks were apparently much different than their original versions. Since I never played the original, I don't really have anything to compare to, but from my point of view, it was all super good. I don't think there was anything I didn't really like about this game in general. There were definitely some parts that dragged out a bit longer than they needed to, but overall it was a really fun experience. So for my score of the game, I'd give it around an 8 out of 10. It definitely didn't blow my mind away with anything it did, but I had a great time playing it overall. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video and would like to look forward to many more RPG game reviews in the future, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And if you're interested in seeing me actually play through a variety of games in real time, make sure you follow my Twitch stream at twitch.tv/rudyxx. Thanks for watching, and see you again next time.